Welcome back to the Bourbon Note, everybody. I'm Ben. I've got a bottle on the bar that everyone's been telling me I gotta try. Let's get into it. So on the bar tonight, I've got, bam, this is Green River Full Proof. So this is gonna be my first experience with Green River, any of their products on the Green River line anyway. I know they make some other products, well, I think they do. I think they make Wheel Horse at Green River. I'm pretty sure that's true. But I've never actually had just a Green River expression. This is the Full Proof, comes in at 117.3 proof. And I've just been hearing a ton about this. I've been told by friends, you gotta try this, it's a great, I've heard it kind of referred to as budget friendly. I paid like 45 bucks for it, I think. So it's a mid-range price bourbon. I mean, unfortunately, 45 bucks is kind of becoming to the lower price range nowadays with bourbon prices, but hopefully that changes. But yeah, I've been told that this is just a great kind of shelfer bottle for a reasonable price. I've heard it does well in blinds. So I've put out a bunch of different videos. I can't remember which ones they were, but people have recommended this bottle a lot in the comments as, you know, hey, if you like this, try this, or, you know, all kinds of that stuff. So I bought this bottle on all of your recommendation. And on the nose, very, very rich. Ooh, yeah, it's got a great nose. I feel like on the nose it's got some kind of standard down the line bourbon aromas, but there is like a little stank on it in a good way. I don't know what it is, but all the classics are there. You get your caramels, your brown sugars, your oak, all the things you kind of get on most bourbons, but really, really rich and bold and very, very sweet. Let's get into the palate and see what happens. Cheers. Wow, that is every bit of that 117.3 proof shows up right at the front of the palate. That is just an immediate like tidal wave of flavors and a little bit of heat, which I like. Right up front, it's super rich but hot brown sugar. It sounds a little suggestive, but it's like brown sugar cinnamon. You know what I mean? It's like it's got that kind of the rich brown sugar notes, but it almost has like a cinnamon candy sort of heat, like from like Red Hots, kind of mixed with that brown sugar. And there's some spice, like a little bit of oak and pepper spice up front. It's just a whole just ball of flavors immediately on the palate. And then it just kind of slowly fades into the finish, which is really nice. But that first sip was, man, there was just a ton going on there. There's a note here that I'm having a hard time putting my finger on. And I feel like it's kind of unique. Like on that first sip, I would say that this is kind of like on the nose. It has all the classic bourbon notes, but there is something that's a little bit different about it that kind of makes it its own thing. And I think that's great. That first sip was really, really good. Let's get into the second one, explore it a little more. Cheers. So on that second one, some of those sweeter flavors are kind of giving way a little bit. They're still there up front, but I noticed on the kind of mid palate and leaning into the finish, a little more of like a tobacco and almost like raisin note. And I think the flavor note that I was having a hard time putting my finger on was kind of leaning into that raisin sort of vibe. And what it reminds me of is like Raisin Bran cereal, which I've never actually eaten Raisin Bran because I don't like raisins, but I've been in close proximity to it. I know what it smells like. So I know what the aromas from that are, and the palate is reminding me of that. Like the flakes in Raisin Bran, it's kind of reminding me of that, if that makes any sense. And then of course a little bit of a light raisin note as well. So yeah, it's just definitely got like the brown sugar and cinnamon up front, but there's kind of a dark richness to it. And then yeah, on the mid palate, it kind of turns into this leathery raisin with still that sweetness on top of it. And then the finish is just kind of a nice lingering spicy finish. This is really good. I'm certainly happy to have this bottle on my shelf. And for the $45 to $50 I think that this runs in this area, that's just a great kind of mid-priced bourbon. I think the proof point works really well in this. This is one where I would actually say I wouldn't go too much higher on the proof with this particular flavor profile, because I think the flavors bring some heat in the sense of like that cinnamon, kind of cinnamon candy, like I mentioned at the beginning, the kind of red hots that complements that sweetness really nicely. And I think some of those kind of leather and raisin notes might get a little overwhelming at too high of a proof. So I feel like this is just really, really well balanced. Again, I said at the beginning, this is my first Green River product. These just became available in Minnesota, I think within the last year. And so I haven't had any of the other ones. I figured I'd start off with the full proof because I tend to like things a little bit higher proof. And this is the one everyone's been recommending to me. I'd like to try the regular bourbon. I know they have a wheated, it's either a wheat whiskey or a wheated bourbon. I don't know, they've got a bunch of stuff. So I don't know if all of the expressions are here in Minnesota yet, but I will definitely be exploring this brand a little more just based on the first impression here. Let's have one more sip, see what happens again. Cheers. Yeah, this is really, really good. One thing I noticed on that last sip, there's a dark note, or kind of just a dark profile. Like some bourbons come across a little bit brighter, some come across a little bit darker. And sometimes when you get, especially in the really high proof stuff, you get those really, really dark flavors. This has that, but it's kind of a bit of a roller coaster with the sweetness and the raisin and the tobacco like I talked about. Nothing really changed flavor-wise on that third sip, but what I'm really, really liking about this one is that I feel like I've had a lot of bourbons lately that, and I don't know if you guys have noticed this if you watch the channel regularly, but I've had a handful of bourbons regularly where it's like, they're really good, but they're kind of down the middle, and there's just not a lot to say in any unique sort of direction. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've had some really, really great bourbons lately that are fairly standard, but sometimes I feel like I'm kind of repeating myself because it's like it's got the standard stuff. It's got caramel, it's got oak, it's got vanilla. But this one really, with the balance of all of those different flavor notes and just with the proof, everything about this is just coming across as something that's just a little bit, that's just different enough where it's not too far out of the lane where, you know, it's kind of leaning away from a traditional bourbon. It's not doing that. It's just leaning into its own lane of being a good, somewhat unique expression. And it's kind of refreshing to get something that's different enough, but not different enough that that's gone off the rails. And so I'm really, really enjoying this. I'm definitely gonna enjoy making my way through this bottle, and definitely gonna be exploring more Green River products in the future. So to all of you that recommended this bottle, thank you very much. That's one of the fun parts about doing this channel, is interacting with all of you, and especially when, you know, we can exchange ideas and recommendations. That is fun for me, because then it gives me, you know, a reason to go out and try a new brand that I had not had before. So definitely going to be picking up some more of these. And if you see this one, I think you should pick this up too if you haven't had it yet. This has been Green River Full Proof on the Bourbon Note. I'm Ben. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you on the next one.